Father, it's preaching time. Lord, I stretch, oh, my hand, oh Lord, to Lord, to thee. What other help do you know? No, no other help. I know. What about it? What about it? If we withdraw thyself from me. Oh, whether, where the shall I go? I want everybody to turn with me to the book of Proverbs. Proverbs, the wisdom book. Bible class, we this week have been studying out of the book of James, but the word of the week was wisdom. And it caused me to do some advanced return reading in this wonderful book of Proverbs, because this is the book of wisdom, the wisdom book of the Bible. So many wonderful things in Proverbs. Some of you quote every now and then, all the time, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Amen. Some of this, that was my grandmother's favorite verse. She would walk in church, and she'd walk in with her white dress on with her hand in the air. And before she testified, she'd say, trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not into thine own understanding. With all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. And we have so many other favorites. Train up the child in ways he should go when he old and not depart. But I want to look at an obscure psalm, one that maybe you have not read or even thought was worth memorizing or remembering. It's in the 14th chapter. Not long ago, I preached from, I guess it was early part of the year, Proverbs 6, talking about the gospel according to the ant. And while I was reading, I came across a passage of scripture that perked my attention. I made a note to go back to it. And then I read, lo and behold, a book that someone wrote that actually manifested even greater details. And I want to just kick off this season where we're going to highlight our youth and young adults, talk about a topic maybe we don't talk about very often. 14th chapter. Psalms don't always have continuous meaning, so one may not relate to the other for context. So sometimes it's good just to go straight to the verse where you're looking at. I want to look at verses 3 and 4 out of chapter 14. Verses 3 and 4. He starts off talking about the dangers of foolish speech and rewards of responsible speech, and then he shifts into a thought that I want to discuss today. If you're there, say amen. I know some of y'all got the pages stuck together because you don't go to Proverbs very much, so hopefully you got it together now. Let's read it all together. In the mouth of a fool is a rod of pride, but the lips of the wise shall preserve them. Where no oxen are, the trough is clean, but much increase comes by the strength of it. Now, Lord, bless this food we're about to receive for the nourishment of our spiritual bodies. Bless it that somebody who receives it believes it. And if they believe it, they'll achieve it. I pray that you would change our minds so that our behaviors will follow. We don't want to just have a discourse, oh God, on theological thought. We want changed hearts and changed minds and changed lives and changed behavior so that we might not only hear better, but do better. And we're careful to give you glory, honor, and praise. In the matchless, marvelous, majestic name of our Master Jesus, we pray. The people of God said amen and amen and amen. I'm not going to ask y'all for y'all amens today. If that y'all hear that little noise over there to my left, that's my grandbaby over there hollering at me. And as long as she's saying amen, amen, I'm all right, amen. So y'all give God praise for little Raya over there, amen. That's my little 10-month-old grandbaby. But she's been talking since early this morning, ready for church, amen. I'm preaching this message actually in light of her generation and those who are yet to come that possibly might help us even as we are looking at the onslaught of so many challenges of the day that we're living. This text reads, in verse 4 in particular, where no oxen are, the trough is clean, but much increase comes by the strength of an ox. I just want to talk for a few minutes about oxtails. Oxtails. I done woke up a whole bunch of y'all. Amen. I done got preachers talking about I could use some right now. Amen. That's right. King James Version says, where no oxen are, the crib is clean, but much increases by the strength of an ox. NIV says, where there are no oxen, the manger is empty, but from the strength of an ox comes abundant harvest. New Living Translation says, without oxen, a stable stays clean, but you need a strong ox for a large harvest. New English Translation says, where there are no oxen, the feeding trough is clean, but an abundant harvest is produced by strong oxen. I was recently able to be a part of a wonderful conference. Many of you heard me talk about it, called IC3, Issachar Conference by my friend and brother, Pastor Dr. Ralph West of the Church Without Walls in Houston, Texas. Puts on a wonderful, marvelous conference every year. I usually can't go because of a schedule conflict, but I made it my business to go at least and spend a couple of days at the conference. Had great experience with the story time moments where pastors and ministers were talking about not their stars, but their scars, the challenges that they faced in ministry. Various groups and persons had classes where they helped people into some practical how-to methods of doing ministry. And in that couple of days were some wonderful things. They even had a golf tournament. Y'all know I like that too, amen. And got there and had a chance to fellowship with some fellow pastors who shared, amen, together on the green. So we had a holy time and an 18 holy time. Some of y'all will get that if you understand, amen. Go watch the Rocket Mortgage class across town. You'll understand what 18 holy means. But in between, one of the pastors from Arizona, Pastor David Wade, we had a break and we didn't have much time to go, and I wasn't familiar with where the restaurants were around in the area where Church Without Walls were. Houston is a very spread out city and metropolis, growing metropolis, a whole bunch of us down there. Amen. Maybe that's why it's so hot. But I was down there and I wasn't sure where to go. So I decided to try to look and see, you know, on Google and things, you can look and see what's in your area. And as sure as I was looking and trying to figure out, and my mind was telling me I didn't want to eat this kind of food. I'm sick of fast food. I tried to stay away from, you know, all of this processed stuff, and I was trying to find something. And all of a sudden, Pastor David Wade said, let's go get some oxtails. Now, I ain't had no oxtail Evangelist Morrissey in so long. But as soon as he said it, I said, my God. I said, you know where we can get some oxtails, man? He said, man, I sure do. So I said, well, you know, we got to be back here in 30 minutes, you know, for the next class, etc. He said, man, don't worry about it. Get in the car. Let's go. It took us 30 minutes to get to the place. He went this way and that way and around and through the hood and up and over the dale. And we got to this greasy spoon hole in the wall, which is the best place to get some, by the way. I'm glad he didn't go to no, amen, Nola. And I walked in there, and they had this, amen, little lady with the apron on and the hairnet on, and she was walking like she'd been cooking all night and day. And she, hey, how y'all doing? Come on in. Amen. I had, amen, mason jars out there. I knew I was in the right place when I saw the mason jar. Amen. Some fresh squeezed lemonade. They had all kind of stuff, and tables with chairs had 3 legs, looked like almost on it. And they've been broke in the middle, you know, got a little corner. I'm all suited and booted, and I'm looking for a place to sit, you know, where I could kind of, you know, take care of my clothes. But then the smell hit me. It was a smell I hadn't smelled quite like that since Mama used to make them. Because Mama not only could cook them, but she had them smothered in gravy. Come on now, had some rice and gravy that may go with us, either some early June peas or some yams or some. Amen. This lady has some mustard and turnips. I was about to turn up that place. Amen. Just had some tomatoes and onions on the side to put on in there. Hot water cornbread, my God. I started to get like somebody in my house who just put the fork down and use that 5-finger fork and just go to work in there, you know, just. But I was mad at David all the way over there until I smelled them oxtails. And when I got over there and saw, amen, what was worth the trip, we missed the whole afternoon service, amen. He ordered, amen, oxtails, and then he said, can I get another order for later on to go? She said, well, it's going to cost you twice. He said, well, I just want the oxtails. You can keep the size. It's going to still cost the same. He said, well, put it in a cup and weigh it by the hour. He was trying to find a way to get it. Next thing I know, he had oxtails on the plate, to the side of the plate, around the plate. I said, man, you're going to be an ox if you eat all them oxtails. But it was just a wonderful, delightful experience of sharing together and me eating these oxtails. And then one of the persons who he had called to tell him where we were going walked in. They came, and one of the persons they brought with them was questioning why we were eating oxtails. So he decided he wanted to go on this sociological, anatomical, anthropological breakdown of what an ox is and where it come from and everything else. And then he went on to say, and you know you eating the tail. I said, whatever it is, amen, I was eating the tail because it's gone now, amen. But it caused me to at least think about this beast of burden, this ox, this animal that was shared. And I read this text. And then I looked at a book that another friend of mine, Pastor James, and Baltimore was sharing, and you read 3 or 4 books sometime at a time. But he was reading a book, and it was happened to be, and I was in Baltimore for Congress, and he happened to be reading a book, and it was called Oxen. So I said, man, I just had some oxtails. He reading a book called Oxen, and then I was reading in Proverbs, getting ready for Bible class, and I read this psalm. I said, Lord, it's something about the ox you trying to get me to know. And I know you don't want me to add oxtails to my diet more, because I had to pray and fast and drink some apple cider vinegar for 3 days to get, amen, that down. But the Holy Ghost whispered to me something that I think and hopefully will be a blessing to you. Joseph Sangle helps make a point, and others sharing. And Solomon, the most wisest person known in biblical times as this wisdom literature, takes a moment to share some wisdom that I hope makes sense to some of you. In particular, I want this next generation to hear me and hear me well, because I believe we've done a disservice to so many of them by not preparing them for the future. Thank you. When I said next generation, you heard my baby. I told you, I need no extra amens. I got all I need. One of the ways we have failed our children was to teach them everything other than how to be financially liberated. Good money managers. We taught them how to behave in public. We taught them how to not, get embarrassing situations. We taught them to make sure they know to wear clean underwear in case, they get in an accident. I still ain't figured that one out, because if I get in the right kind of accident, if I had on clean underwear, I'm not sure that they would remain. I'm just saying, that's me personally, amen. But they taught us how to be mannerable. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Don't argue with the police. Amen. They taught us, this, that, and the other. But many of them did not teach us how to manage money. Neither did they teach us the importance of revenue streams. While we quoted to people and our children, and even in church, when you heard money, if they weren't taking up the offering, people were talking about money is the root of all evil. It didn't say the money was, it said the love of money. Even preachers, we were reading and studying this week when I was doing my deacons training, and we were talking about the issue of what the Bible calls filthy lucre, which we establish money, and the text tells people not to be, caught up in filthy lucre. It did not say that you were not to learn to have, manage, and to attain wealth. It says don't let it have you. You can have it, but don't let it have you. Proverbs 13:22. We don't hear people quote all the time, but it says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. That's grandbabies and great-grandbabies. And the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. Proverbs 22:7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Ecclesiastes 10:18-19 says, by slothfulness or laziness the building decays, or the rafters sag. Through the idleness of hands the house drops, or the building leaks. Feast is made for laughter, wine makes for merry, but money answereth all things. I say to us that sometime, those of us especially who teach and preach as we ought, the importance of a holistic gospel, talk about the unjust ways of the governments that oppress people, educational systems, other things that happen every day. We spend too much time in press talking about, 46 minus 1 and all the craziness he does, and every day he's going to do something to get the camera's attention, while at the same time he's throwing shiny balls over here and over there, but they are shuffling more money to the 1% and taking more money away from those below. You have 3 people who even right now, their collected wealth is more than all of the 50% of the bottom half. Y'all missed what I just said. You have 3 people whose wealth is more than almost 50% of the bottom half of the rest of people, because the disparities are greater. The world is shifting. The jobs that you used to work and your ancestors, some of them worked, coming off of farms and coming out of post-reconstruction and coming out of sharecropping days, when the industrial age hit and the factories opened up and people left the South and came up north, or up south, shall I say, and began to work jobs that they were able to take care of families for a living. When we showed and taught the world how to ride and drive, because Detroit and Flint and all of these places put the world on wheels. Unions developed. The middle class was born. But all of those jobs have gone to cheaper labor, not better labor. Many of you cannot talk to your children about working the same job you had. And if they are still hiring like they're hiring now at places, Fiat, Chrysler, and other places, many of our children will not be able to get those jobs because we did not ensure that they stayed in school and got the level of education, because you almost need a high school diploma and a bachelor's degree just to work at McDonald's now. You got to know the hypotenuse of the flip of the angle of the hamburgers and the Fahrenheit of the fries. So when you start getting these jobs that they're opening up and they'll advertise them, many of them require certain background checks. Nobody told them that when you're wilding out and you're dealing with other things that happen, if you get certain records, we haven't banned the box yet, there are certain jobs you will never be eligible for. There are certain things that labels were given to some of our boys and others. They can't work around certain people and certain folks, particularly even children, because of childhood behaviors. They forgot to tell them that just because they passed a new weed law, that you got marijuana in your system, you can't apply, get these jobs, and they can take a strand of your hair and tell you how many joints you smoked last week. So while you blowing blunts, buying nickel and dime bags and celebrating the fact that you and old Pookie can lay up now, smoke without somebody busting in and smoke it all conscience free, the whole world is passing by you. People say, well, you know, you can't overdose on no weed. Ain't nobody ever died from smoking too much weed. That ain't the problem. Problem is you live, but the quality of your brain cells ain't gonna be very much if everything you have is oh well. Because you know what weed does, it may not kill you, it may not, but the fact is, don't nothing matter much. Oh, come on, y'all, I know y'all ain't smoked before. Let me just tell you how it go, okay? Because I'm wondering if I got some weed smokers right now looking at me like, oh, well. You done gave Father I stretch and you ain't talking about Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Oh, well. Some of y'all taking a break and you ain't going to the bathroom and you're going to go light one and come back so you can handle my message. Amen. I hope you hear me real good, because I'm about to blow your high when I tell you that the fact is we failed our generations by not telling them the dangers of what happens to them. Slothfulness and laziness comes when you can, listen, when an average person get up, have to smoke a joint to get up, had to smoke one to go to work, got to hit another one on the break, another one to come back off the break, got to get one when they get in the car, you look over in another car, somebody else lighting up, then you have to get one, you go to the club, they got joints, people give them, listen, and when you come back home, you got to have one before you know you're going to have to eat 3 and 4 meals, because they give you something called the munchies. Is that what they still call it? Or just have to eat up everything in the house. Ain't bought no groceries, ain't bought no food, eat everything you see, spend all your money in doing that. Then you have to get one to go to bed. Your head hurts, you got to get one when you wake up, and you start the whole day off, and everything is a cycle of you trying to make it and catch up, and don't nothing matter because you're lazy. You don't care. You got the whatevers. Maybe I ain't stressed, but you ain't working either. My blood pressure gone down, yeah, but you ain't paying attention to what's happening in the world of the market. You have gotten to a place where you have cut off maybe the edge of your anxiety. It's the same excuse that your ancestors used for smoking cigarettes. and the prohibitions that went behind them and the edge of nicotine, the same answer. And we have to stop drugging ourselves and doping ourselves and dropping off and utilizing substances to keep us from facing the harsh realities of living life in the world every day. Because while you doing all of that, some of the same people who manufacture the product won't give it to their kids. Some of the same people who deal with some of the stuff that some of our kids are wearing and eating and smoking, they will never have the same thing in their neighborhoods, will not allow it in their own environment. They use it for you. You become the consumer. They make the money. They have the producers, but they don't want to even make others aware of it. The only reason why there's an epidemic right now where they've gone to rehabilitating instead of incarcerating is because white kids are now dealing with opioid crisis, because white kids are now becoming addicted, because heroin and others, because addiction knows no color, no culture, no gender, no neighborhood. It finds its way wherever it can. And when other people now start having challenges, now they want to find hospitals and not jail cells. While you doped up, Ray. What you have to understand is that when you finally do get a connection and decide you want to try to do something, and you hear a little announcement and you want to get you a little land bank property and want to go flip it and things of that nature, and you have something and you go to one seminar and somebody comes to rip you off, and you have to remember, even the people who come in your city and they come in your neighborhoods and they have these $200 and $300 and $400, $500 seminars, the things that they're using, the principles they got right out of the Bible you can read for free. Many of the principles by which many of them are practicing comes right out of the book of some of the things I'm talking about right now. Can I just tell you one? I just told you that I won't keep it on. The oxtail that I'm looking at in Proverbs 14:4 says this. And I repeat, let me put it in the translation that maybe you can hear it. Where there are no oxen, the feeding trough is empty and clean. The reason why many in this generation are barely making it is because they've never been taught that you cannot spend all your money, never save any of your money, and expect that you can live paycheck to paycheck and get ahead. Yes, you ought to fight for minimum wage, but you'll never be in a place of abundance in this society if all you do is fight for the minimum but never seek the maximum. Reason why many in this generation are barely making it is because they've not been biblically taught, even in the church, the importance of money. We don't talk about it often. We talk about the master, but we don't take about the master and money. Do you know Jesus used more parables talking about money than any other parable option that he chose to talk about? But we don't emphasize the fact, and the reason why, and rightfully so, is because we got some people on the other side who's run crazy with the prosperity kind of stuff, and everything is naming and claiming, blabbing and grabbing, and make Jesus your choice and ride the Rolls Royce. But that pyramid thinking is only sometimes acquainted to a few people on top, and everybody else is in the process of still scrapping for the bottom. This is not something that is made to make a few people rich and everybody else the suckers. I'm talking about the ability for management and that which was given for us to make what we call stewardship important, because when I say stewardship in the church, everybody wants to run out the door. Grab hold of your pocketbook if you still got them. I don't know what y'all carry with your clutches or whatever, bag. Amen. Cash app, whatever. You want to shut everything down because you think somebody come trying to take what you have, but you giving it away for free. Predatory lenders all in our community. You won't find them in Bloomfield Hills. You got people, and you got all of these green crosses all up and down 8 Mile, everywhere else, and they ain't churches. Some of y'all will get that. You have people who use all of these quick, cash app, cash a check over here, and, get it quick, and then you have to owe more money than you paid. You want to get a TV, you can't afford one. You got a TV bigger than the whole living room. Amen. You can't even get in the bedroom because you got a big flat screen taking up the whole wall. Don't even know what paint color it is because you didn't go in the renter center trying to get something so you can watch, amen, your game or your film. Listen, how big do you want to see the people? And by the time you pay the monthly rent, you could have bought the doggone television. You've been at Renter Center since grandma died. You could have had more televisions and sold them all yourself. We don't save. We buy one to get the latest car that just came off the lot. Soon as it hit the pavement, it just depreciated 25%. You can't turn around, take it back, and sell it for the same price you bought it for. Most other people wait a year or two and get something, pay cash for it. Don't let people take their interest. People teach their children money management and money issues, and yet and still we trying to bling bling and ain't got a thing. Most other cultures not only talk money and resource management to their children as a given, but they model it by pooling their resources, creating job opportunities and career paths, practice investment strategies, talk about tax loopholes. Most folks, when they did this last tax, you don't even know what just happened when they shifted in result of that. All of a sudden, nobody thought it was a big deal until you didn't get no money back as much as you used to on your tax refund. Now all of a sudden, what happened to my money? The government didn't give me all my money back. Well, first of all, you need to understand that what you got wasn't no gift. It was yours in the first place. Come on, talk to me here. Ain't nobody giving you nothing. What world do you live in? You think after what they did to you in slavery, they going to give you, amen, $2,000 every April. They ain't giving you nothing. They kept it, held it, made money off of it, and then give it back to you. Churches every week take our deposits, put them in our banks. They take them through the cycle, make much money off of it, and then won't give you a loan to even reconstruct or even rebuild or repair your own building. But what would happen if all the churches held off their monies and said, we're going to put it in the bank that's going to do right by us? I bet you a whole bunch of stuff started changing then. What if we developed our own bank system and developed and start loaning to each other and making sure that whenever there's a summer slump or whenever there's a Sunday missing or something that goes on or they increase the water bill or the DTE and things go up, that we have a pool of money we can help with. What happens if storms come through and devastation happens or church burnings and others? We have got to do what other cultures do and take care of our own people. While we were reading the funny papers, they were reading Dow Jones average. Oh, y'all remember we used to get the paper to read the funnies, the comics? We knew all about Beavis and Butthead and everybody else, but they were reading about stocks and bonds. We reading the Michigan Chronicle and the Defender. They reading the Wall Street Journal. We reading about who died in the obituary column. They looking at who's rising on the stock market. We grab the sports section and go run off in the room, and they grab the business section and go run off in the room. Our kids get in trouble. We got to go find Bruno the bail bondsman and some public defender when Jewish children have a Jewish defense league that they can deal with, and their parents got lawyers on retainer. Not because they work harder, but sometimes people work smarter. Even people who they're talking about, immigrants coming over on the boat and dealing with things of that nature. When they need to have things and they're trying to find places, many of them have relatives that they have over here. They ain't looking to try to take your job. Most of the jobs they take, don't nobody want to work. Even black folk don't want to work them no more. And even then, when they do work them, you go and you pull up on some Home Depot, hold up 2 or 3 fingers. They'll jump on the back of your truck, go fix, pick up, clean, do whatever you want them to do. They will do everything, whatever it is. And when they get their money, they'll take it, they'll pool it. They all 15,000 of them in one house. They will pool resources, send some money back to Mexico, send some back to Cuba, send back to Puerto Rico, another, taking care of people who can't get here. And they save, they do. And then when they can make their own, they leave something for the kids, move on. And before they know it, they take over the whole block. Ain't nothing wrong with people pooling resources, working for themselves. The problem is, while you're judging them, you used to do it. We built colleges that we can't even take care of no more. When they locked us out, we built our own HBCUs. And now we can't even keep many of them going or accredited or upgraded because the people who went there won't even give back. When we had challenges, we had our own Black Wall Street in Tulsa. And yes, racism called them to burn it down. But if you did it once, you can do it again. We can't keep crying over what they did to us. We got to learn to rebuild and rebind. Yes, we do suffer from PTSD. And I'm not just talking about being over in some war. I'm talking about, as Joyce McGrew talked about, post-traumatic slave syndrome. Yes, the reason why we are behind it is true. It's because they brought us over here not to pay us. We weren't indentured servants. We weren't slaves for hire. We worked sun up to sun down with no pay. We were taught the ability to have to work for other person's profits. The reason why, yes, we did become first world is because if you get free labor and free rent, you are going to do better faster. They took the land from Native Americans. They brought over free labor. And yes, many don't want to talk about reparations because they don't know and don't want to deal with a Marshall Plan for people taken advantage of. But while they're having that discussion, we can't sit idly by and watch our children not know how to make it in the years to come. The Bible never talks about dealing with the issues of crying over the spilled milk of our past. The same God that was with our ancestors is able to help us in our future. The same Joseph who was hurt by his own family and his own family members looked up one day and was Secretary of State, and his family members had to come by him because he learned how to save, because he taught them the 80-20-20 principle. Take 20% and give it to God, 20% save it for yourself, and 10% give it to God, the 10% save it for yourself, and 80% live off of and force yourself to have disciplined behavior. We have 4th of July coming up yet this week. And while everybody running out, buying stuff they can't afford, just because somebody set up fireworks in your neighborhood, they let you burn up your house. Amen. Blow up, amen, burn out your grass. Amen. Everything up. They won't take them in other neighborhoods, but you will come in and they'll blow up everything in town after you didn't spin it all up, ate it all up, and do that. And then all of a sudden, you don't even know what you were celebrating in the first place. Ain't popped a firecracker for Juneteenth. Some of y'all still looking baffled like you don't know what I just said. Juneteenth was just the other week. You want to talk about some freedom, talk about the freedom of our people who had a chance to be able to make it in this place in order to have what we have today. If you want to celebrate that as well. But we celebrate the independence of a nation that still won't do right by people who fought for it. Not just back then, but even now we got people who are our military returners, our veterans, and people come home and they can't even make it or even be taken care of by the country they fought for. Many of them did better over in Iraq and Iran and other places than they're doing in Afghanistan than they're doing right back here in the neighborhoods of our cities. Student debt is at an all-time high. We told our children to go to college. We told them to get a good education. And rightfully so, they should get it because many of them are doubting if that's the right idea. Yes, education is important. Why do you think the first thing they told us and forbid us to do was read when we got here? Yes, if you empower your mind, they can't take that from you. But you cannot be information regurgitators. You got to be critical thinkers. You got to take the information and make some sense out of it for yourself. But we went to school Running up a lot of debt. Told them if you get a college degree and get a good job. But many of them got the debt but can't get the job. And if they get the job, they spend the 45 by the time they get out the debt. So they turn to people like the Nipsey Hussles of the world and others to be able to see there's got to be a better way. And some of them have turned to the street pharmacy, drug trafficking, and others because they said if it's all about money, I know how to make it quicker. But let me just say to you, I've not seen many drug dealers retire in old age. You talking about making money? Listen, if you got to watch over your back and look over your shoulder all your life, your stress level is going to take you out of here. Because whatever you get and whatever you gain is going through your fingers because it's not godly ordained. When will the church talk about what God has to say about this? Proverbs 14:4 talks about empty stables with no oxen. Some of y'all looking at me and say, well, what that got to do with ox? And what that got to do with, Pastor, I'm confused. You started with oxtails, you went to money, you talked about what we did with ancestors, and now, listen, I'm as confused as a feather in a whirlwind. Well, let me bring it all in for you. Anybody ever grew up on a farm? Anybody ever remember seeing cattle on the farm? Cattle are not the workhorses that actually work for the farm. All cows, that's what cattle are. All cows do is eat. Come on, Thomas. They let them out, they graze in the grass, they eat. You put them in a manger, you know, we sing that song, Away in the Manger. You know, that's the place where the cows live. They put them, and if you ever watch the cow eat, they eat up everything in sight. They don't leave no scraps. Come on, and once they finish chewing up, they have something they call cud. I can't explain it to you real good on a Sunday, but they save some that they can just burp up and chew on later. They got a tongue that goes out, and after they eat up there, they lick up all the residue. And they feed them all of that because they want to get them beefy, get them fat. You know, like Luke 15, the prodigal son, when he came back home, the man said, go kill the fatted calf. Come on, talk to me here. Because his only job was to get fat for the party. And that's all your kids are doing. All we're doing is allowing our kids to get fat for another party. But that's not the part of the text our children should be a part of. Even if they're prodigal, we need to teach them how to come home and be servants and kings and queens and have positions and authority and have the ability to have robes and rings, not be a fatted calf for somebody's slaughter. The cattle in the text eats up everything. What the text is saying is all you got is a house full of cows, but don't have no oxen that will go to work. That's the reason why your house is devastated. Anybody know something about the ox? The ox is what goes in the field to work. The ox is what brings in the money. The ox is what labors in the field. The ox is what brings in the revenue stream. And some of y'all got cows and no oxes. Oh, Reverend. You shouldn't have asked me what I was talking about. I told y'all I would tell you. So the cattle eating and devouring everything in sight describes many of our financial conditions. Tell your neighbor the manger is empty. We live paycheck to paycheck. The manger is empty. Social security check to social security check. Manger is empty. Disability check to disability check. The manger is empty. Pension check to pension check. The manger is empty. Some of y'all no check to no check, just hoping for a check, checking on a check. The manger is empty. Schools should not have to depend on check-to-check people. Churches should not have to pray on check-to-check people. The ability for us to thrive and survive by now should not just be wasted on. And it's our fault if in the house we don't teach it, but even more so, it's our fault if we got trustees in the church that will collect money but won't teach you how to invest and save and make revenue streams with your money. We are at fault to teach and preach about Jesus died, crucified from the pulpit, but never tell you about him having you, giving you more life and more abundantly. We at fault if we sing and shout and jump around and tear up the church and then don't even give enough tithes to fix the pew you broke. And then want to send a text, you know the pew ain't working. I'm just talking. Our income never exceeds our outgo. We rob Peter to pay Paul. Somebody say, preach, Reverend Bland. Well, listen, I'm hooping right now in case y'all don't know. We live to pay bills, have a few thrills, and then die as broke as the Ten Commandments. But if the farmer is going to survive, tell somebody you need some ox. Yes, this oxtail that I'm giving you today is better than the ones I had the other day. This oxtail is not T-A-I-L, it's T-A-L-E. It's the story of how you need more oxen in your life. Because for every ox you have, the more revenue you can develop. Oh, somebody from the time can remember, great-granddaddy and others who walk around and have that listen, if they had an ox, or in those days they couldn't afford an ox, they'd get an old mule. That's the cross between a horse and a donkey. But the donkey ain't going to work and the horse runs too fast. So there's something you can use as a beast of burden. But when we couldn't afford the ox, we had something that would help us work. We went from oxes to John Deere's and John Deere's to others and many other cultures. And some of us have forgotten what it takes to make it happen. Daddy did not depend on just one source of revenue. When they took his money on one hand, he had the ability to bring in some others on another hand. Many times, he did not know how to count his money, couldn't read the contract, didn't know what was going on because he was taught historically not to be able to read. But in those days, wives worked with their husbands. They weren't bringing them down. They weren't demeaning them. They weren't belittling them. They weren't talking about where's my check. They weren't depending on the friend of the court. They weren't trying to get him out the house so I can get more aid with more cheering. And the only reason why you come is to bring me more babies. Then you got to climb out the window before the social worker get here so I can increase my. The devil is a lie. We have been taught and told historically, and they're breaking up our families like they did when we first got here. Preach, Reverend Bland, and that has got to be broken with more oxen in our stalls. You need to be looking at more than one way. And I ain't talking about no credit card cracking scheme. Because see, they make easy ways for you to try to make it. So they can incarcerate your butt and get you more reason why you can't do it legitimately. And while they're doing that, there's less people they got to worry about taking care. They'd rather incarcerate you than educate you, and it costs more to incarcerate you. But while it costs more, there's more jobs for other people. See, because when they take old Pookie and Ray Ray and Peanut and put them way out somewhere, you know, in jail, they never put them all with it, but they put the maximum prisoners out somewhere. Then mama got to figure out how she gonna get out there. Come on, talk to me here. So, you know, she got to get a ride or she got to get the bus because she gonna see her baby now. Well, you know, she got to get because there ain't no flights over there, so she going to get somebody. So that's why they get the money, the infrastructure to build the highways to some of those places to build up because they know a whole bunch of depressed mamas got to make the way to go get them. Then they got to have some place to eat when they go out there. So all the restaurants, amen, got places to take care of. And they got to have hotels because, you know, she don't want to just get that long way and just stay for a day. So she got to stay overnight so she can be able to take care and come see old Ray Ray, amen, 2-3 days. And so she's doing it. And they build a whole industry off of our depravity. You spend more money going to check on your child than you ever spent on trying to educate or raise. If you would have just taken some of that money you gave the bail bondsman, or you had to pay to get them off of jail or put on their books at the commissary, that's the money that should have been sending them to their future. And if you don't pay now, you sure gonna pay later. Too many of our kids have a record tied to government systems that will hardly never make them free. But the Bible says he who the Son makes free is free indeed. I didn't come with bad news, I came with good news. Because the text says that oxen are needed. You need somebody that can help bear the beast of the burden of our pain and take us from where we are to where we need to be. This text is tailored to teach us about money management. If the farmer is going to survive, we need to have the ability to have our children to look at not just the depravity of the cows that ate up everything. I ain't calling your kids no names. I'm just saying what I'm saying. But if some of y'all check your house lately, every time you bring groceries in, the cow's eating it up. I'm just saying, amen. You wonder where it all went and you just got from the store. Amen. And you can't come because they just wait for you. They ain't putting no money on it. They ain't even ask you, can you drive you to the store? They didn't even ask you to help you bring the groceries from the car. They wait for you to get all of it in, stock it up, cool it off, heat it up, get it ready, sit down, and that old lazy cow will eat it all up and ask you when the next feeding trough time is in the manger. And I'm not talking about babies you got to raise at 10, 12, 13. I'm talking about grown folk, 30, 40, 50, still in the house, in the car. Big old fat lazy cow in your basement, borrowing your car, need $20. Get that cow out of there and say it's time for you to grow up and become an ox in this house, because I need somebody bringing something in, not somebody eating something up. And if we're not going to make a difference in our homes, we'll never make it in our community and in our churches. Because when you get too many cows in your house, then you got to go from not dealing with money management, you're going to have to deal with manure management. Uh-oh. You know, a whole bunch of eating cows make a whole bunch of manure. Y'all gonna make me go. David ate up all them oxtails, but I didn't want to follow him back to the hotel because I knew, amen, they wasn't all gonna stay in. The results of a harvest sometimes will produce messy conditions. And if all you got is lazy cows, you got to clean up all the manure without the privilege or the ability to even have them to help themselves. Many of you thought you grew up your baby. Just because they ain't wearing diapers don't mean they don't need to be changed. A cow that doesn't defecate is a dead cow. However, you need to know that you can make it through, because in another message, and I'm going to look at some of this in a series, I want to talk about how do you make the best out of your mess. If all you got is a bunch of manure making conditions, I want to talk in another message about how do you take your manure and make a miracle out of it. You do know that there's some good stuff you can use with manure if you know how to use it, if you know what it is. And then in another message, I want to talk about how do you develop these oxen, these revenue streams. I want to talk about how do we make the difference in our money issues of money. I don't want to just give no one-time hit it and quit it message that talks about what's wrong with the world. I want to end by helping us understand, and a new generation during this youth and young adult period, while we're looking at how to develop a church. The church ain't going to be the church if you don't learn how to take what somebody left you and do greater with it. This is your season. This is your hour. Everything you look around and see and sitting on, somebody's sacrifice. People mortgage houses just so they can have ability to pay for a church they could build. People sacrifice and were dedicated. Many of them love their church, love their pastor, love their work, love their ministry. And we don't have young people coming along that love any of it. As a matter of fact, many of them are defecating on all of it. They don't care nothing about your church. They don't care nothing about your ministry, your hat, come on, your baby contest, your women's day, your whatever the case may be, and they barely will speak to the pastor. But I say to you, we can turn it around. Because the reason why, when Jesus talked to people, he could get a response out of them like he did when he told Peter, go back out there again. Peter said, don't need to be dealing with that situation. I tried that before. Jesus said, launch back out into the deep. The reason why Peter and then went back out there was one major reason. That is, they didn't have no fish in their boat. See, if you're an expert fisherman, check your boat. If you know so much, young people, young adults, if you got all the answers, check your boat. If you know more than your ancestors and more than your parents and more than your grandparents, check your boat. Because if you got more answers, you ought to have more fish. But the reason why Jesus tells you to get back out there is because if you ain't got no fish, listen to the master. Because he said maybe you didn't catch none last time. But Pastor Bland said if you get back out there, I done stocked it for you this time. Maybe you had a bunch of cows around the house, but if the cow decides to turn into an ox, one thing about the ox, not only will it work hard during the day, but whenever the weight gets heavy, the ox may fall down on his knees. But when the ox falls on his knees, it's not about to die. When the ox falls on his knees, it's not about to give up. But the ox falls on his knees to gather more strength. I wish somebody here understood the importance of falling on your knees. I wish somebody understood the imagery of what happens if we have some oxes in this room that can just learn to fall down on your knees and talk to the Lord about your financial situation. You talk to him about everything else, but you take your money to the market. You take your money to the lottery. You take your money issues to the casino. You take your money issues to the sweepstakes. You take your money issues to some $1,000 line and some old greasy spoon, a chicken-eating person trying to tell you how to get it quick. But you need to take your money matters to the master and turn it over to Jesus. I'm about to turn it into a preaching message here, but let me call about now, and that is that the text says the ox knows how to take care and restore a broken house. And if your cattle have eaten you out of house and home, and your manger is empty, how many of you all will confess you got an empty manger? I know you ain't gonna say it in church. I know you ain't looking around, but the truth is, for every hand that may not be up there, it ain't because it's not so. They just don't want you to know their business. But I would tell you this, and I'll tell you this well. The only way you can be saved is you must confess your sins. I'm not talking about just saved going to heaven. I'm talking about saved from financial ruin. I'm talking about saved from a drug addiction. I'm talking about saved from a crazy thinking mentality. Saved from whatever it is. Whatever your problem is, if you can't confess it, you can't possess it. Why do you think we had a whole group of people, NA and AA, that we allowed to come free of charge in our church every Saturday? And they come and they talk, but when you come in their meeting, the first thing they say before anybody get to say anything, before they eat anything, before they do anything, they have to say how my name is. And I am. Y'all missing what I'm saying? Because they have to confess. Because they'll always be subject to falling back into the same trap again. If for the rest of their life, they don't confess the fact that that devil is going to chase me the rest of my days. Young people, let me just say to you, the demons that chase you didn't just start with you. I said the demons that are chasing you didn't start with you. The same devil that chased you chased your mama, chased your daddy, chased your grandparents, chased your great-grandparents. And it ain't going to quit until somebody breaks the generational curse. But you need to stand up on your feet and being declared, I'm going to transform from a cattle to an ox. I'm not going to eat up everything. I'm going after the abundant harvest. The text says the oxen brings a harvest to the house. Jesus says, I've come that you might have life and life more abundantly. I asked a question the other day, why would he say more abundantly? In the English major, anybody did go to college or you even graduated from even public school know that you don't need more and abundantly in the same sentence at the same time. Why not just say, I come that you might have life abundantly? Or just say, a more better life. Spike Lee came out with a movie called More Better. But more abundantly doesn't make good English, but it makes good sense. A man was walking down the seashore. He was praying about his financial condition. He said, Lord, I've given over to you my life, given to you over my family, given to you over my future, but I've never given to you over my finances. He says, they're about to foreclose on my house. They're about to take everything that I have. I'm an upstanding leader in the church. And I'm facing embarrassment when everybody finds out that as important as I look to all the people, I never did know how to manage my money. I confess I didn't tithe like you told me to, even though I held the tray for everybody else to give theirs. I confess that I never did give in no extra offerings because I always wondered what they was going to do with it. I never did take advantage of doing anything to help even kids unless they was going to Cedar Point and others. And I thought me just giving $50 was good enough. I just thought that maybe helping the donation of Vacation Bible School was enough. I didn't know they needed more than that. So I gave them a few trinkets to entertain them, but never invested to sustain them. Never came to graduation showcases, never supported them going forward, never sat there to listen to their speeches, never supported them, and even my own. And now that I've gotten older, none of them are interested in helping me. He says, Lord, but I heard that you said that you came to have a more abundant life for me. And I don't know how you're going to do it, but I need you to help me to understand it. God looked down at him and spoke from the sky and said, do you believe I've got more for you than what you have been able to experience? He says, yes, I don't see it, but I believe it. He says, how much do you believe it? He says, you show it to me, and I'll show you how much I believe it. He said, faith is not seeing, but believing. If you could see it, you wouldn't have to believe it. He said, do you believe, I asked you, that you can see it? He says, look up in the sky. He says, what can you see? He said, I see stars in the sky now coming out. He said, count the stars. He said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. He said, it's too many for me to number. He says, those are just the ones you can see. That's abundant. But all the stars that you can't see, that's more abundant. Somebody, I'm going to let you know where your resource coming from. He said, look at the sand. Grab a handful of it. He grabbed a handful. He says, now count it grain by grain. He tried to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 30, and they were falling through his fingers faster than he could count it. And Jasmine, he said, that's abundant. But look down the seashore. That's more abundant. God says what you are looking for is just abundant blessing. But if you try me and trust me, I got more. Abundance. I've come that you might have life, and life more abundantly. I'm opening the doors of the church right now. That's the word for today. Oxtails. Some of y'all who was hungry to eat the physical oxtail, now you want to feed on the spiritual oxtail. The story about oxen in your life suggests to you that God wants somebody today to come that wants to make a confession, first of all, that I need to be a part of the family of God, because this oxtail means that, first of all, you had to belong to some house. In the text, it was a farm. You got, wherever it is, you got to belong to something. You can't just hang out there.